fellow constitutionalists. I should say afternoon because I'm getting started so late. Again, we had some technical difficulties on the show. Every time I get a Windows update, it does something to my network. And I'm getting really tired of these Windows updates. I really am. Welcome to the Tuesday edition of the Dan Clemens Show, a Christian political talk show. This is episode 825. I'm your host, Dan Clemens, your constitutional warrior, fighting for your right just to be an American. It is June 20th in the year of our Lord 2017. And we're a hyphen-free, PC-free zone. God is still in control, and He does love you. And I'm broadcasting live from the Hemlock Studios here in the beautiful central Susquehanna Valley in the great Keystone State. And if you would allow me a few things to get done here, I have to end some tasks here for whatever reason. Well, I had to restart my computer, okay? But I'm broadcasting live from the Hemlock Studios here in the beautiful, warm, central Susquehanna Valley in the great Keystone State. And as far as I can tell, I have all the echoing taken care of in the system. And I'll tell you in a second what I actually had to do to get that going. And hopefully the video's going to be a little bit choppy for you to begin with on YouTube because of the I'm going to turn some volumes off here. Because I'm up against my CPU because I restarted the system in order to I had to reset the network sharing at the home group and then go back out and restart and come back in. And I didn't think to check everything. And I guess I have to do this like an hour ahead of time. I'm just going to have to check to make sure I'm actually streaming and able to do everything that I need to do on this. But trust me when I tell you that I am going to I gotta check one more thing here. That I am going to be going to a separate computer just to do the production on, and it's going to be a Linux computer. I'm getting away from Windows on any type of production with this program because I've never had this problem with Linux other than it shutting off. But that's something to do with the stream from Windows over to there. So. I'm about pulling my hair out, folks. I really am. I got to start up. I got to get all my notes up here, my show notes and everything. While I'm doing that, the official drink of the Dan Clemens Show is Rocky Mountain High Brands. Now, I am getting away, just to let you know, because I'm going to try this experiment for a while, because they say that even the caffeine I drink in the morning is not good for me with my fibromyalgia because I guess your caffeine can take up to anywhere to 12 to 24 hours to totally get out of your system, and it could cause what happens to caffeine, folks, you don't know, cause your liver to dump sugar, and that's not good for my diabetes, which I know that, and it also wakes you up. So starting tomorrow, sometime tomorrow, I will be starting to go totally caffeine free. I've placed an order for the lemonade. The Rocky Mountain High lemonade has no caffeine. It's not an energy drink. Very low sugar. It's only got 26 grams of sugar for a 16-ounce can. And if you look at your regular sodas, they're upwards of 60 grams of sugar per like a 12-ounce or 20-ounce. And so very low in sugar. It's a natural sugar that they actually use in the Rocky Mountain High brands. And folks, what I really want out of the Rocky Mountain High brands is the hemp oil. And the hemp oil is what helps me with my fibromyalgia. At least it keeps the pain away for quite a while throughout the day. So hopefully. And I've done experiments with this where I have not drank Rocky Mountain High brands. It seems like I can't get through the day without more pain. And then when I go back to drinking the Rocky Mountain High brands, it helps the pain go away and I can do more things throughout the day. I can actually do some more editing, more videos, and get more work done here in the office and a few things around the house. So hopefully the stream's coming through okay. It looks like it's working very well over on YouTube. I have my laptop up monitoring the show. So I know I'm a little bit late, and it's going to be an abbreviated show, and I do apologize for that. I really, really do. Today's daily Bible reading comes from the Gospel of John, chapter 15, verses 8 through 10. By this my Father is glorified, that you bear much fruit, so you will be my disciples. As the Father loved me, I also loved you. Abide in my love. If you keep my commandments, you will abide in my love, just as I have kept my Father's commandments and abide in his love. Said a mouthful there, folks. And the problem with, I got to turn this slide out real quick. The problem with the world today is we want to define things the way we want to define them. We want to do things the way we want to do them. And we don't want to take God at his word, and we have a misconception of what love is. We have a misconception of commandments in the New Testament. Who ever heard of such a thing, right? So, folks, when you read the Bible, please, who, what, when, where, why, and how, and do word studies to see what the original language actually said about those things. Today's quote meal comes from Jim Elliot. I may no longer depend on pleasant impulses to bring me before the Lord. I must rather respond to principles I know to be right, whether I feel them to be enjoyable or not. And that's very, very important in today's society, folks. It really, really is. That we don't depend on pleasant impulses to bring me before the Lord. Sometimes our sin is painful, and we still have to come before the Lord, and we still have to ask his forgiveness of those sins. And life, I wish all of life was pleasant. And there's been some very painful chapters in my life. I've lost 2 siblings, my twin sister and my baby brother, and those hurt. And there's nothing enjoyable about that. But you know what? When you have the love of your family and friends, and especially your church family, you can get through a lot of things. You really, really can. Today's short Bible lesson is from Apologetics Press by Jeff Miller, PhD, and it's called Apologetics is Evangelism. And I've heard denominational preachers talk this way. I've actually heard members of the Church of Christ talk this way. Well, apologetics is not evangelism, so I don't want to support that work. I want to support a mission or evangelistic work. What happens if someone asks you to prove that God's word is true? What happens if someone asks you to prove that there is a God? How are you going to do that? If it isn't for apologetics, to actually go through and show the evidence, and I heard this one denominational preacher talk about this. He said, well, giving the evidence to people is like you're putting God on trial, and you really shouldn't do that. And I'm like, well, excuse me. God put his word out there so that we would question things and we would search it. We sit down, as Isaiah said, sit down. God wants to sit down and reason with us. So yes, God put evidence in his scriptures that we may know that he is who he says he is, and that his word is infallible. And apologetics is evangelism, folks. It really, really is. I guess they found all the bodies to the sailors on the Fitzgerald, and they released all their names. Our hearts go out to all the families there. I have a story here. The Fitzgerald collision investigation brings up possibility of an international strike. And I was watching the news this morning, and some things seem strange there. One, what was that big container ship doing making maneuvers in a port area like that? And two, and I don't know all the particulars, are still investigating it, but and I can't, and Dave might be able to help me out here. I can't remember what we used to call this, but when we went in and out of port, we had to go to what I consider to be damage control stations. When I first got on the Hunley, and after the shipyards, we got underway, my post was down in the aft shaft room. And I was right there at the shaft. We had a single shaft propeller, and I was right there at the rear seal where the shaft went out of the ship to connect to the propeller. And that was my and for the likes of me, I can't remember what they call that. Something to do with sea and anchor duty or something, sea and anchor detail. But it was for coming in and going out of port. And I don't know if they were on a sea and anchor detail, if they were that close into the port yet. Modern warships are way better. Modern naval ships altogether, even the auxiliary ones, are way better than they used to be with radars and all that kind of stuff to try to avoid collisions. So there's some things in that investigation that still need to come out to find out exactly what happened. Exactly what happened there. All sorts of good stuff on the show notes page today. Honestly, folks, I have an article there. We're having a similar issue here in PA, like they did out in the Dakotas, and basically they're trying to put a natural gas, not even an oil, natural gas line from one side of the state to the other on the southern tier of the state to bring natural gas from the Bakken Shale over to Philadelphia, Lancaster, all points in between. And these protesters are out there trying to stop this gas line. And I've questioned them. I've actually gotten blocked off a couple of their forums. And because I dare to question. If you're protesting these gas lines and you use natural gas to heat anything in your house, stove, water, your house itself, go out and turn your meter off. If you're using it, you're hypocritical and protesting other people from getting natural gas. And I literally got blocked from some of these forums. So I'm like, okay, you don't want to listen to me. I'll get on my radio show, which scares a lot of my progressive anti-freedom friends on Facebook and Twitter when I tell them, well, this is good fodder for my program. And they're like, you do a radio show? Now, some of them actually did some research and come back, and they don't go to Blog Talk Radio. I don't know why. They go to YouTube and say, well, you don't have any numbers yet. You don't have any numbers at all. And I'm like, well, I've only been starting this. This will be about my 85th or 86th episode that I've actually put on YouTube. And I missed a couple shows because of technical difficulties. I just decided I wasn't even going to try to re-record it. I was so frustrated. But just like out in the Dakotas, the Dakota Access Pipeline, there was professional protesters out there. George Soros pays people to go around and protest at these free speech rallies. Open Society supports a lot of like BLM and Common Cause and Let America Vote. And I haven't got into the financials yet of indivisible groups, but I wouldn't doubt they're not getting some money from Open Society, which is a George Soros funded nonprofit that supports all these far left propaganda, progressive, anti-freedom sites and folks in the country and that. So there is a problem going on today in Pennsylvania with this, and it's basically it's the Mariner East 2 pipeline would cut through the Cumberland County as it courses across the southern Pennsylvania. Last fall, a makeshift encampment on the outskirts of Standing Rock Sioux Indian Reservation in rural North Dakota captured the attention of the nation. Celebrities and professional protesters flooded the region. The media quickly adopted a sympathetic narrative telling agreed protesters fighting to preserve the integrity of the land against the steady oppressive encroachment of energy development. David versus Goliath reincarnate. Sadly, the realities on the ground, both during and after the protest, belie a much uglier truth. They tell of hapless violence and bloodshed, intentional misrepresentations, and senseless destruction of the very land and waters in question, all done under the banner of self-proclaimed environmentalism. Watermelon environmentalism, folks. Ultimately, those efforts inflicted millions of dollars of damage and, not surprisingly, reaffirmed the validity of the project that the protesters set out to undo. Now, the Mariner 2 is to run from Washington County, and that's just south of Pittsburgh, folks, across Pennsylvania to Marcus Hook in Delaware County. The pipeline is to extend into the Ohio and West Virginia as well. Now, with law restored on the legality of the Dakota Access Pipeline project upheld, many of the same professional agitators who fomented chaos in North Dakota are turning their efforts to the Mariner 2 pipeline in Pennsylvania. They hope to steer decision-making away from the appropriate judicial and regulatory channels by applying the same model of defiance for the law and disruption. Recall, these are not peaceful protesters. Pennsylvania deserves better. They deserve an honest conversation built on substance and fact. And Now, there are, to be fair, there are some grassroots Pennsylvanians, some Dutchies out there that are in these groups, but it seems like these watermelon environmentalists are starting to migrate over here to Pennsylvania, and I fear as the author of this article, James Spider Marks, and he is a retired, you get down to the bottom here real quick, just to let you know what's going on. U.S. Army retired. He's a major general, and he's president of the Marks Collaborative. And like I said, to be fair, there are some Pennsylvanians here, but they're seeking outside help to try to stop this this natural gas. And what's going to happen, why they're taking it clear down to Marcus Hook, is they're going to liquefy the natural gas and put it on tankers and sell it overseas. They're going to companies are going to make money off of this. And in the meantime, people are going to have access all along the way. There's going to be certain terminuses there, and they're going to have access to it. And it amazes me how many of these people protest. And I've asked this question too. How did you get to the protest? I have a good friend that graduated with me in high school. She lives out in South Dakota. She was in the thick of all this stuff, and she criticized me for some of my criticism. But I said, oh, how did these people get to the protest? And people were saying, what do you mean? I said, did they drive vehicles? Did they walk, ride horses? How did they get there? Well, almost everyone came there with a vehicle that used fossil fuel. So you're telling me you're protesting a fossil fuel. Now, out there, Dakota Access Pipeline was oil. So you're protesting it, don't want it. And yet you're still driving around a vehicle that uses the very thing that you're protesting. Seems kind of hypocritical to me, folks. It really, really does. So that'll be on the show notes page today. Another one. This one here, I'm really applauding. However, I wonder why it even got this far to begin with. Again, I am constitutionally minded, and the government only has certain enumerated powers. One of them is a taxing power, okay? But what happened was that the federal government, in their infinite wisdom, and I use that tongue-in-cheek, set up, let me get down in here. The bill, there's two senators. This is by Katrina Willis over at dailysignal.com. And that other story was PA Live. It was an op-ed piece by Mr. Marks over at PA Live. This one's from Daily Signal. Senators seek to stop government subsidies for sports stadiums. Okay. I was intrigued when I read that. I said, okay, I'm all for that, right? Two senators are calling foul on government subsidies for professional sports stadiums. Senator James Lankford, Republican Oklahoma, and Cory Booker, Democrat New Jersey, introduced a bill Tuesday named Eliminating Federal Tax Subsidies for Stadiums Act. Okay? The federal government is responsible for a lot of the important functions, but financing sports stadiums for multi-million, sometimes billion-dollar franchises is definitely not one of them, Lankford said in a statement. Using billions of federal taxpayer dollars for the subsidization of private stadiums when we have a real infrastructure needs in our country is not a good way to prioritize a limited amount of funds. According to the press release from Lankford's office, the bill would close a loophole in the tax code that allows professional sports teams to finance new stadiums with municipal bonds that are exempt from federal taxes. According to U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission, municipal bonds are debt securities issued by states, cities, and counties and other government entities to fund day-to-day obligations and to finance capital projects such as building schools, highways, or sewer systems. Michael Sargent of the Heritage Foundation doesn't think sports subsidies help communities. And he has a link there. And I shared this on the show a while back about over in Cleveland and the fallacy of how sports stadiums bring more money to the area. And it really doesn't. It displaces businesses. It doesn't bring more to it because of the businesses it brings with the stadium or that are inherent in the stadium takes away from other places in the city. But there's a link in there for the sports subsidies. The bottom line is eliminating this cronyist tax preference is good policy, said Sargent, who focuses on transportation and infrastructure policy. The claims that stadium subsidies spur economic growth and create jobs has been debunked time and time again. Instead, they're a handout to wealthy, connected companies at the expense of the American taxpayers. Researchers from Brookings Institute have argued this practice wastes billions of taxpayer dollars. The federal government has subsidized newly constructed and majorly renovated professional sports stadiums to the tune of $3.2 billion since 2000, wrote Alexander K. Gold Austin, Jay Drucker, and Ted Greyer in a 2016 Brookings report. But because high-income bondholders receive a windfall gain for holding municipal bonds, the resulting loss in total revenue to the federal government has been larger than $3.7 billion. Professional teams have sometimes threatened to relocate if a local government does not offer public money to help renovate or rebuild stadiums. This is most recently seen with the Raiders leaving Oakland for the Las Vegas desert. All told, the Raiders were able to secure nearly $1 billion in subsidies to entice them to move, wrote Charles Hughes of the Manhattan Institute in Economics 21 in April. Jeff Dorman, a contributor to Forbes.com, explained in January 2015 that the stadiums do not create economic opportunity for community members or even much extra tax revenue for local governments. In fact, local and state governments get new tax revenue from stadium-related events in only two ways: steering purchases toward activities with higher tax rates and taxing out-of-town visitors, said Dorman. Why should taxpayers pay so that a few favored businesses can see greater profit? Representative Steve Russell, Republican Oklahoma, introduced a parallel bill in the House, the No Tax Subsidies for Stadiums Act, in February. The latest action on the bill was a referral to the House Committee on Ways and Means in the same month. So it's something that's still going through. I'm going to check on this with open Congress and see where these bills are actually at. But I've been saying this for a long time, that the guys that own these, or the companies that own these NFL franchises, are literally billionaires. They have money out the wazoo. And if they're not making money, like any other corporation, if they're not making money in an area like Caterpillar in Illinois, they moved out of Illinois. If you're not making money in that market, move. But you shouldn't expect taxpayers to foot the bill for that. Again, you're taking tax dollars out of the system, which, backing it up just a little bit, the federal government shouldn't be in this at all, giving these loopholes out to these crony capitalists. I'm sorry. Just like Elon Musk, he's a crony capitalist. He gets a lot from the United States and other European countries. He gets a lot of tax breaks, and that's a subsidy to his business. So he can do business. And he's starting, his Tesla Motors is starting to feel the crunch because there's some of these EU countries that are stopping these tax breaks to him. And I've said this for a long time. I had an article last week from Zero Hedge talking about how if it wasn't for the tax subsidies that he was getting, he wouldn't be in business today. He'd be out of business. And it's because of this hysteria about man-made or man-caused climate change that isn't true. And there's companies out there, you know, I'm sorry. I look at guys that take advantage of these situations like hucksters, you know, con artists. And, you know, all these solar companies, if you look in yesterday's show notes, and I didn't get them up because we had thunderstorms rolling through the area yesterday, and I do apologize for that. But there were some stories in there that I think people might have missed, where there's some other companies, some smaller solar companies that got millions of dollars in taxpayer dollars in subsidies that went bankrupt under Obama. And, you know, we talked about how green energy just isn't feasible, you know, for man hours, for megawatt, you know, how much megawatt per hour you get to the man hours it takes to create it. It wastes a lot of jobs and a lot of money and a lot of taxpayer dollars on something that's not proven. It's just a hysteria. And I know people have called me. I was in a discussion with a guy this morning, you know, about global warming and stuff. And I said, why don't you guys ever, you know, because I got it, matter of fact, I got it right here. I was talking about this with somebody on Discuss, and luckily, this is from Other Jones. This is by James West, posted yesterday. Rick Perry is in charge of nuclear safety. Too bad he doesn't understand science. What are they talking about? Well, if you go want to read, you're talking about carbon dioxide. This is the old story about carbon dioxide. And I made a comment down there, and all these comments for some reason were centered around A&M, Texas A&M, and cheerleaders, and Rick Perry needs to get a cheerleading outfit and stuff like that. And I'm like, really? I said, you guys need to do less. This is my comment. You guys need to do less research on cheerleader outfits and more research on human-caused climate change. And I put that, the video I shared a couple weeks ago about the climate change swindle. And the only comment I got back so far before the show, and I was checking it before I came upstairs, was the criticisms of the director and producer of the documentary. And I'm like, okay, you can have those criticisms, but it's not about the director. I said it's about the content that he put in there. And matter of fact, I have I shared it. I didn't put it back in this folder here, but I've shared it before. The MIT professor on climate change, and he's a climatologist, and he went through. He was in this video, and he went through and just really smashed their whole narrative. And the biggest thing in this whole video, and I keep pounding on this, the sun is the biggest driver of whether the Earth is going to be warmer or cooler, and there's nothing we can do about it. We don't have the science today to shade the Earth, and even if they did, how much damage would that actually do to the Earth? Could they trigger a massive ice age that would cover the globe because some idiots thought, and going on a false narrative about carbon dioxide and the sun shining too much, that it's always, and this is where an economic lesson always comes in to play, even in science, and just about any aspect of your life. When you're making a decision, there's always the unseen. In economics, it's the unseen hand. Bastiat in the law was talking about, the unseen, like the broken window. Oh, people looking at, well, the glazier's going to have money, the people that manufacture the glass, the person that puts it in, the salesman in between, yada, yada, yada. He's adding to the economy. But what they don't see is maybe the person that owned that window that was broken by somebody was going to use that money for a capital investment, expand his business, to hire more people and to make more product and add more to the economy that way, because that's a steady growth. That breaking that window, unless a guy stands out there every day and breaks that window, and if that happened more than twice with me, I'd have guards out there to stop him and try to get him arrested, put him behind bars to stop that nonsense. Unless you break that window every day, that's a one and done into the economy, and then it goes away. But no one thinks. People don't want people to think critically, like we used to think, and look at the unseen. What happens if that window wasn't broken? You look at it as it being a good thing to the economy, but what happens if it wasn't broken? Now, a lot of people have the misconception, and we talk about capitalism, free markets on here all the time. Well, that greedy capitalist is just going to put it in his pocket, and people are just going to stay poor. And most of the people I talk to about that have never been in business. It's something that they heard that they're just regurgitating, a talking point or narrative that they heard that they're just regurgitating, never thought about it, never owned a business, never had employees, never had anybody working underneath them, and they don't know how businesses work. Businesses do not thrive by squirreling away their money. They just don't. Now, you have to have a certain amount of savings for maintenance and stuff like that. You build these into the budgets and stuff like that. But businesses, if they're not growing or maintaining their market or whatever, which takes money to do, even to maintain your position in the market, you're going to die. You're absolutely going to die. So they don't even know about crony capitalism and stuff like that. So again, this article was very condescending on Rick Perry talking about carbon dioxide. I read through it, and I kind of figured that's what it was. But these folks at Mother Jones, this James West, doesn't get the science right on CO2 at all. And there are a lot of scientists that are coming around to this climate change swindle documentary and starting to think more critically. And actually going back and looking at the science, going back and look at the historic trends. Temperatures, and this is something they're still searching to find out why it is, but they know it is this way now. That the temperature rise always preceded the rise in carbon dioxide. And some actually put forth the theory, and they've tested this out, that the ocean is one of the biggest reservoirs of carbon dioxide, either intaking it or exhaling it in the atmosphere. And the warmer it is, the more carbon dioxide goes in the atmosphere. You can't stop it. The colder it is, it sort of sucks it in, and they're still searching to find out why that is. Why, and at least according to that video. And so, there's a lot of things they don't know. They don't know what causes fibromyalgia. They don't know. It just is. So, okay. Couple more things here before I get into the main thrust of the story about this young lady that was killed down south. I'll get into that story here. You probably heard about it over the weekend. I just want to get a little bit further into it. There's a story about Jay Sekulow. Now, Jay Sekulow he founded the American Center for Law and Justice. He's a lawyer, does fantastic work over there, fighting for the rights of unborn children and things like that, religious tolerance and everything like that as far as for Christians. And the title of the article, this was from Salon.com by Heather Digby Parton. Jay Sekulow's bizarre debut. Donald Trump picked a lawyer he saw on Fox News, and it isn't going well. Now, according to her, Jay Sekulow, I've never met him, never talked to him, but I've been a part of his organization. I haven't done it recently because of money constraints, but I've contributed to the ACLJ in the past. They do great work on Christian issues from a legal standpoint, especially for unborn children and against abortion and stuff like that. And I'll read the first couple paragraphs here. It said, last week, the Washington Post, they're not a credible publication, folks. Let me just put that out there right now. Dropped one of the biggest bombshells of the Russia scandal to date when it published a story with 5 different sources saying that the special counsel Robert Mueller was looking into President Trump's actions related to the firing of former FBI Director James Comey. The sources were anonymous, so the White House could have easily made no comment and let it outside surrogates construct some alternative facts, if only to buy some time. Now, I read this, I shared this article, folks, last week on the show. This dropped the biggest bombshell, right? And this, again, is one of these articles from Washington Post that had an anonymous source, a highly placed anonymous source, identifying another highly placed, not a name, but, quoting another highly placed anonymous source in the White House. We know there's leakers in the executive branch, and they need to take care of this. That was listening to a highly placed anonymous source that was in the can, going to the bathroom, hear something come through the wall. Didn't quite understand it, but he thought he understood enough of it that he passed it along. And again, these anonymous sources are getting out of hand. And as far as I'm concerned, they don't hold water with me. If there are whistleblower laws that protect whistleblowers, and if something is untoward and criminal, they can go through the proper channels with the whistleblower laws and blow the whistle on this stuff. But these reports, and this makes Salon part of the problem. Heather is reporting this like this is the biggest bombshell of this Russian scandal. And the biggest bombshell she missed during the Comey testimony and during the Sessions testimony is it was a fake New York Times story that got the whole ball rolling. Washington Post picked up on it. Democrats picked up on it. And they just ran with it. And how much time and effort, man-hours, have been wasted on an investigation based on a fake, fabricated story out of the New York Times. But then they, like I said, they go on to criticize Jay Sekulow. Now, as far as I'm concerned, Jay Sekulow, as far as my research and my dealings with him and his organization, is above board. He's very credible, very principled man, and I think he's going to do a good job for Donald Trump. I think Donald Trump, and this is I think a concerted effort by Democrats and the anti-freedom crowds out there. They're putting so much garbage up to see what sticks to the wall, and quite honestly, I don't think they care if anything sticks to the wall. They're slowing down President Trump, and they're slowing down the executive branch because they have to go investigate all this stuff. They're talking about repealing Obamacare with a reconciliation in the Senate, and you can anybody can add an amendment to that. Now they start to vote on the amendments. I was looking at some at Common Cause, and these guys have no clue what Senate process is, and you can't just offer an amendment and it's stuck to the reconciliation bill. It doesn't work that way. The amendment still has to be voted up and down. However, what they're saying is the Democrats are going to keep offering and offering and offering and offering. Now, that doesn't mean that the Republicans can't stop. You know, the Republicans can vote and say this is the end of the amendment process for this particular bill, and we're going to stop this. That's the other procedure that they could do. Go nuclear again, okay? Just totally, totally ignorant. And these people just, they have no clue. They have no clue what's going on. So anyway, so Jay Sekulow from the ACLJ has been hired by Donald Trump as an outside lawyer to help him combat all this stuff. He needs people to follow this stuff because it's going to bog down his administration if he has administration people doing this. And the Democrats don't realize how much money they're wasting the American taxpayers by doing this. Of course, they don't care. It's their money. It's not your money. It's the Democrats' money. So they'll spend it any way they see fit, and if they need more, they'll just tax you more. And that's the way they do things as Democrats. Okay. Not much. There's still not much to report on the vehicle over in London. That let me get over to this. Several injured. Over in London, several injured after vehicle plows in the crowd near London Mosque. This by Nick Visser from Huffington Post. Posted on the 18th. They talk about it's a 47-year-old Darren Osborne who lived in Cardiff, Wales area. He's the person who was driving the van. One person died. It was outside of a mosque. The incident is being investigated as a potential terrorist attack. The incident occurred near a Muslim community center following evening prayers for Ramadan. Authorities say one person is dead. At least 10 are injured after a man drove a vehicle into a crowd of pedestrians near a North London mosque that was just completed evening prayers. The incident, which occurred shortly after midnight on Monday, is being investigated as a potential terrorist attack. I just want to stop the reading there. All these other attacks that were done by Muslims, they were saying, you know, God is great in Arabic as they were attacking these folks. They weren't investigating these like terrorist attacks. They weren't even saying it. But this lone this lone guy, which I'm pretty sure he's Caucasian, they're investigating as a terrorist attack. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. You got the hypocrisy over in England. And I'm not condoning this at all. I'm really not. I think it's bad on both sides. I think that the anger, I think the violence on both sides needs to be condemned. It needs to be stopped. This is going to plunge England, and I think England's almost at the tipping point now. We're just going to plunge him into a civil war for the control of the country and kick out Muslims. And if it goes that far here in the United States, it could happen here in the United States. I don't want to see that happening at all. It's a waste of time, money, and precious lives to do that. So I just want to point it out that they're actually looking into that as a terrorist attack instead of some nut job out there getting mad and taking revenge and vengeance in his own hand. I just wanted to put that out there. Okay. Let me see which one I want to go to. I have a couple here. I have one from Huffington Post that killing a Muslim teen was road rage, not hate crime, police say. And the reason why I put that out is because my Facebook antagonist, Kimberly, put out talking about this young lady. Let's see here. Let me get into this one I really like, and she hates this source, which if she hates it, I like it. I'm just saying. It's from heavy.com. And she thinks that heavy.com, because of the stories they put out on her, is just a tabloid. And I'm like, and it's any different than Salon or Slate or Mother Jones or HuffPo? an HuffPo, they're actually talking about making it into a tabloid type online service, and I'm like, well, that ain't going to be a far walk. You know, but again, the first one I gave her was this one from Heavy, which Heavy seems to be a decent news outlet. You know, better than most, not as good as some, but it's not bad. Heavy.com by Paul Farrell. Darwin Torres and Nabra Hassanin, 5 facts you need to know. And they do a very good job on these 5 fact type things, or these facts you need to know about these things. 22-year-old man is in custody after Muslim teenager was found beaten to death in Virginia in what authorities are calling a road rage incident. According to the Fairfax County Police Department, Darwin Martinez Torres is facing murder charges in relation to the killing of Nabra Hassanin, 17, in Herndon, Virginia, in the early hours of June 18th. Nabra had been the subject of a missing persons case around 4 a.m. on June 18th, with police saying that she was last seen walking near the mosque with friends. Many Muslims pray late in the evening and early hours during Ramadan. Then Nabra had a verbal fight with a man in a car. The man is thought to have attacked and killed her, and Torres was picked up by police shortly after Nabra was first reported missing. Okay. Now, Kimberly put a big diatribe ahead of this. You know, you can post on Facebook and you put all these comments up there. She blamed this whole incident on Donald Trump. The whole thing on Donald Trump. And I'm thinking, you got to be kidding me. You got to be kidding me. As far as I'm concerned, she didn't even know what was going on. And it's been reported, this guy, this Darwin Torres, has a detainer out by ICE from El Salvador, and he's an illegal immigrant, or alleged illegal immigrant. I guess the status still needs to be looked into, but the Immigration Custom Enforcement has a detainer out for the local police to detain him. Okay, so he's from El Salvador, so he's not even an American. He's not even white. I'm sorry to say, and I don't think it had anything to do with Muslims, or that the fact that she was a Muslim. I think this, from everything I've been reading on here, one, the Facebook post about Nabra's killing said 2 men were swinging baseball bats at a group of girls, and this was something that was reported. The Washington Post reports that Nabra's body was found in a pond in Sterling, Virginia. The baseball bat was covered nearby, but nothing was confirmed on 2 guys were swinging baseball bats at this group of girls outside of a mosque. Okay, this was something that was posted. Authorities are not investigating the case as a hate crime. They're not at this point. All right, and this is what Kimberly was putting out. You know, the hate, the blind hate there. ICE believes Torres is an undocumented immigrant. That's why they put detainers on him. Okay, Nabra always talked with a smile, which was good. You know, she seemed to be a happy girl, well-adjusted here and everything. This comes on the same day multiple Muslims were injured in a ramming attack in London. Okay, that really doesn't have anything to do with this. Is everything I've been reading on this. Okay, the man accused of killing. Let me get over here. Man accused of killing Muslim teen is from El Salvador by Chuck Ross, and he's a reporter over to dailycaller.com. A 22-year-old man accused of killing a 17-year-old Muslim girl in Virginia on Sunday morning is an illegal immigrant. Now they're reporting he is from I like saying that, El Salvador. A spokesperson for the U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE, tells the Daily Call that it's a suspect, Darwin A. Martinez Torres, was arrested on Sunday in the death of Nabra Hassanin, a high school student from Reston, Virginia. Police say he beat Hassanin with a metal baseball bat in what is described as a road rage incident. The case initially drew national attention because of the possibility of it being an anti-Muslim hate crime, but the Fairfax County Sheriff's Department ruled out bias as a motive in the statements on Monday. According to police, Hassanin was attacked by Torres while walking with a group of friends from a IHOP to Al Dulles area Muslim Society Mosque, where they were attending an all-night prayer session for Ramadan. Torres allegedly pulled up in his car and argument ensued. Hassanen's friends ran, but only realized later that Nabra was not with them. Torres was arrested after being spotted driving erratically by investigators who were searching for Nabra. Excuse me. He led police to Hassanen's body, which he allegedly dumped in a pond. Local police and ICE were slow in confirming whether Torres is in the U.S. illegally, but in a statement issued Monday afternoon, an ICE spokesman confirmed that the agency had lodged a detainer request against the El Salvadorian national, indicating that he is an illegal alien. So this whole thing blew up on with my anti-freedom friends on Facebook and Twitter as this was a hate crime. And just jumping to conclusions like Kim did, just blaming Donald Trump. And I went down and I shared the Heavy article, which she just totally dismissed as tabloid. I said, okay, well, two can play that game. So then I put up the Huffington Post article that said almost the same thing as the Heavy. And then she didn't say anything about either one. And she said, what? She used some profanity. And she goes, well, what's your point? And pointing all this out, you know. And I said, because you're so hateful, it's blinding you. Your hatred of Trump and Republicans and conservatives and that is so blinded you to the truth that you can't even take 2 seconds, take a breath, step back, do a little bit of research before you post on Facebook something that's erroneous. And your statement about Donald Trump and him being the cause of this is erroneous. And I haven't seen a response back from there. I can imagine she's probably still, if her house hasn't caught on fire because of her anger and hatred, it soon will. I mean, it's smoldering there. I'm not trying to add to it, but I'm always being accused of being uneducated and you know, Islamophobic and sexist and racist and all these things that aren't true. And yet, when you point out that they're operating on blind hatred, I mean, they just blow up. That their hatred is blinding them to the facts of anything that's around them. And folks, that's, you know, that's a dangerous place to be. It really is. And if she wants to be there, that's fine. If that's where she wants to go, and that's where she wants to sort of live her life, that's okay. That's okay, but don't spew it on Facebook. It's a wonder she didn't get dinged already. Of course, she is an anti-freedom, part of the anti-freedom crowd, the ethical humanist crowd, and so those type of people, they can spew all the hatred they want all day long, and Facebook doesn't ding them at all. They just absolutely do not ding them at all, and this is a problem in our society. I said I told her, I said, what you did takes away from civil public discourse, because people can't have a conversation with you. You've already made your mind up and come to these conclusions, and nothing's going to deter you from that because of your hatred. And quite frankly, I tell people this all the time. If they want to get mad, that's okay. That blinds them to the truth everywhere, and I can deal with that. If someone's coming after me, either mentally or physically, and it's through a blind hatred, please, that's easy to defeat, folks. That is so easy to defeat because they don't see anything else around them but what's in front of them. And it's going to get them in trouble eventually, sooner or later. It's going to get them in trouble. Well, like I said, this is going to be an abbreviated show. I do apologize for this. Like I said, I had another Windows update, and it knocked off my home group. So my server, my Mona Tiny server, couldn't hook up to the server, so I could produce a show, put it over to my broadcast server, and get the show out to you folks. So I see I am coming down to the end of the show here, so hopefully everything sounds good on there. The levels are good. There's no echoing. And I'll tell you tomorrow what I did. I didn't have time to do it today, but I will tell you tomorrow what I did. This has been the Dan Clements Show. I'm your host, Dan Clements, your constitutional warrior. Remember, if you aim at nothing, you hit it every time. Have a great rest of the day, and God bless, and we'll see you tomorrow at noon.
Talk Radio. Goodbye.